Hi everyone, and today we are back on to the metaphysics of God and we're carrying on with the problem of evil. So you'll remember last time we started to look at what we meant by evil and the different types, and also the different types of problem of evil, where we had the evidential and the logical problem. And then we started to look at solutions to the problem of evil, and we called these theodicies. So today we're going to be focusing in on a full theodicy or a solution to the problem of evil. And we're going to look at Plantinga's free will defense. And we're going to look at the problems with that. Next time, we'll move on to Hicks' soul-making theodicy and the problems with that. This is Alvin Plantinga. He's an American philosopher who's come up with a free will defense, and it's a form of theodicy. And I just want you to be aware that, Plantinga is not the first person to think of defending God with human free will. So a free will defense is something that's quite common within sort of Christian thought and in other areas of theology. But he outlines it nicely so that we can use it for the exam. And the gist of it is this, really, that evil is the result of human free will, which God has given to mankind. So evil is the fault of humans. Right, and let's just have a think about what he's doing here. He is offering a theodicy, and a theodicy is a justification for God with the existence of evil in the world. So it's a justification of a belief in the God of classical theism, even though we have got evil and suffering in the world. And we've seen that this seems to clash, evil and suffering, with other attributes of God, such as his omnipotence and his omnibenevolence. So the background to Plantinga's theodicy were the ideas of Mackie. Now, Mackie is an atheist, and Mackie rejects the ideas of free will to explain evil in the world. And the reason that he does this is he thinks that God had, if God existed, would have three possibilities. Now let's just have a look at these possibilities that he considers. So number one, God could have created humans as innocent kind of robots, so without free will, without choice. Or number two, God could create free beings who often do the wrong thing. And that's very much what we've got here at the moment. But Mackie says there weren't just those two choices, that actually God could have created beings who could act freely but always go right. And when you think about this, it seems quite unrealistic. But can you think it is logically possible for somebody to always make the right choice? And if you flip a coin with heads and tails on it, there's nothing logically impossible with the idea that that could always land on heads. It doesn't have to land on tails at any point. So God could have created beings who have freedom, but they always do the right thing. Now, this is quite an idea, and it's something that Plantinga actually argues against. And Plantinga's theodicy is really there to show the value of human free will and genuine free will. Plantinga's free will defense runs like this. A world with free will in it is a more valuable world than one without. To be able to choose the good, God had to create humans with free will. God could not create humans with free will but determine them to always choose the good, as this would not be genuine free will. Sometimes people choose to do evil rather than good. Therefore, evil can be explained as a result of having free will and having the possibility of choosing the good. Therefore, moral evil is consistent with the existence of God. Now, you need to spend some time taking that argument down, but I just want you to look at premise 3, that God could not create humans with free will, but determine them to always choose the good, as this would not be genuine free will. So this is Plantinga going directly up against Mackie, because Mackie thinks that it's not logically impossible to have free will but always do the good. Can you see that Plantinga has inserted the word determine them? So he's saying that you can't have free will and yet force them to do good. It's not quite what Mackie was saying. Mackie was saying that they could have free will, but that they would choose to do the good. Plantinga's ideas about the value of genuine chosen action, so genuine free will, is really well illustrated by somebody called Vardy, who uses his king example. So Vardy gives the situation of a king who has all power in his kingdom and falls in love with a peasant girl and wants to make her his queen. Now, as king, he has the power and authority to command that girl to become his wife, his queen. But he knew that this way, the relationship that they had wouldn't be really of value. It wouldn't be one of a free choice. So instead, he chooses to disguise himself as a poor person in the kingdom, and he actually goes about impressing her and being nice to her and winning her love and her a relationship with her, so that she really chooses to be with the king. So genuine free will and the choosing of the good has real and significant value for Plantinga, and it's nicely illustrated in that example. So the key idea from Plantinga then is that you can't have genuine moral good without the possibility of genuine moral evil, and both of these things are the result of free choice. Okay, so now let's move on to some of the issues with Plantinga's ideas. And there is a massive problem here that should be staring you in the face. And this is the free will defense only seems to address the existence of moral evil. Now, we know that evil and suffering come in two forms. So we've looked at natural evil and moral evil. And so this theodicy, at best, seems to only resolve one area and does not explain why we have earthquakes and disease, the problems of natural evil that we've looked at. So at best, half a job. Okay, but this is where St. Augustine might come in. And Plantinga's theodicy, his free will defense, is based loosely on St. Augustine of Hippo's theodicy. Now let's just have a look at this theodicy that it was very popular for a long time in Christian theology. So it goes like this. In the beginning, God made the world, and the world was perfect. And God made humans and angels with free will. Now, as a result of free will, some angels turned towards the city of the world and away from the city of heaven or God. So for some reason, the angels in heaven, some of them started to look towards a different world, our world. And these angels then fell to earth and tempted Adam and Eve. So you'll remember, I'm sure, the story of the serpent in the Garden of Eden. So Adam and Eve exercised their free will and turned away from God. And because of their actions, God punished Adam and Eve for their sins. And that's what suffering is. So the Augustinian theodicy makes a very clear statement that suffering is a deserved punishment from God. Now, here we go with a kind of very tenuous link. Now, as we are all related to Adam, so we were present in the semen of Adam, we were seminally present in the loins of Adam, we all deserve this punishment. We all deserve suffering. So God is just, so he punishes where punishment is due, but God is also merciful. so is willing to offer salvation to those who sin, so we can repent and actually be forgiven for this sin that we have all committed because of Adam. So we can see here the idea again that evil is coming from human free will, and God is making us suffer as a response. Okay, so just remember the way that we were criticising Plantinga's free will defence as only giving us half an explanation. So it seemed to be explaining moral evil in the world, but not explaining natural evil. Now, Plantinga does actually point towards the ideas of the Augustinian theodicy to show that human action led to disruption in a perfect world that God had created. God had created a perfect world of order, and humans have had an impact on this environment. And now as a result, we have chaos where there was once calmness and order and perfection. So yes, this is a punishment from God. It's a deserved punishment for human action. So can you see that if Plantinga uses Augustine, as he does, he's extended this to be an explanation or a theodicy for moral evil and also natural evil. But I've got two big arrows pointing towards that Augustinian theodicy. And we just need to be aware that the Augustinian theodicy is not a popular theodicy in terms of explaining evil today. And one of the main reasons for that is the biblical basis of the theodicy. So it is looking at the biblical account of creation and also the biblical account of original sin. And we have since had scientific accounts for the creation of human beings. And so you might think that whole kind of area of the Bible might have been undermined. Now, it might not be the way you see it. You might actually be a supporter in that, and that's absolutely fine. But the other thing that science shows us is that we have got evidence of suffering in dinosaurs. Now, we've got fossil evidence of arthritis in the bones of dinosaurs. Now, this account that Augustine gives us obviously doesn't account for the existence of dinosaurs, but we know anyway that dinosaurs were around before humans. Now, if suffering existed before humans, then how can we blame humans for suffering? Can you see it doesn't quite add up? So we've got science arguing against this free will defence that Plantinga has propped up with Augustine. But there's another way that we can attack theodicy, such as the Augustinian theodicy and Plantinga, because he is using it to prop up his own. So we could take the approach that we could attack this a priori. So how can a perfect world go wrong? Isn't it a logical contradiction to say that something perfect is, in a sense, faulty? So this approach comes from somebody called Schleiermacher, and his point is this: it is illogical to say that a perfect world can go wrong. There has to be an element, there has to be something of evil somewhere in creation from the start for the decline to happen. So we are looking at the claim from Plantinga and from Augustine that God is blameless because his creation was perfect. But actually Schleiermacher is saying, no, that is impossible. A perfect world cannot, by definition, go wrong. So I've used like an empty palette there. Imagine if all those paint blocks were just white, but then we got this kind of dirty greenness appearing, and it spreads throughout. Can you see that if something is completely one colour, there's no way that it can be messed up in any way and anything gets, chaotic and dirty? But actually, this is what we're saying with the Augustinian theodicy and the free will defense, that once upon a time things were perfect, but that can't be the case because they're not perfect now. So where are we now with assessing the success of Plantinga? So we might be with Plantinga and agree that human free will has led to suffering and that God chose to make humans with the capacity of choice in order to have a really meaningful relationship. But we might disagree with Plantinga from the start and put forward Mackey's point and force Mackey's point that God actually did have a third option, to create humans with free will who always choose the good. The big issue that we cannot ignore for Plantinga's free will defense is the fact that it only seems to directly address one form of evil, and that's moral. So if we follow Plantinga into using the ideas of Augustine, then we arrive at all kinds of scientific and logical problems. Perhaps the better solution is with John Hick and his veil of soul making, which we'll look at next time.